from Discovery Plus, Aditi Shrivastava, co-founder and CEO from Pocket Aces, Pratik Gupta, co-founder from Zoo Media and FoxyMoron, and Anindo Banerjee, Vice President Originals from Hoichoi. I would request all the delegates to keep posting their questions in the chat box, and the panel will answer a few of them in the end of the session. Over to you, Mr. Karan. Mr. Karan.
$1.5 billion market as far as India OTT is concerned, and it's not even 1% of the global OTT industry size. And as per industry estimates, this market will probably grow to more than 3x in the next 10 years. So that's the story like. If you look at India in terms of content consumption trends, we are a multi-language, multilingual country. We've got more than 12 to 14 large regional languages. 40% of the audience is Hindi and the rest is others, whereas South has a very huge share in terms of other languages. The demographics are just ideal for us, to explore in terms of India OTT. Data is very cheap. Penetration opportunity is huge. Consumption trends are massive. Tier 2, Tier 3 offers a very huge opportunity. We've got some 60 plus OTTs in the country. So I think things are looking very good as far as data is concerned. But today we're going to explore a lot of insights in terms of around curating content and the taste of the customers in terms of what really happens and what is it that is there in the OTT players mindset in terms of defining what kind of content is to be made and what is the kind of target addressable market, what is the kind of customer base like, what are the consumption trends, and we'll try and explore that from various leaders today who are from various different ends of OTTs. So I quickly, kickstart this conversation by bringing in Praveen here. Hi, Praveen. Welcome here. So, Praveen, just to get your perspective, on the customer profile and the consumption trends. Discovery Plus as a platform, has now started their own OTT platform about a year ago, and they were earlier predominantly only on TV. So, what is it? What is so different about Discovery Plus than the Discovery Channel? And if you can highlight some kind of customer profile or some kind of consumption trends between your OTT and your TV audience, how different are they?
Sure, Karan. I'll first of all try to, just add a point here, which a lot of people make a mistake of, is that Discovery is just about the brand, the Discovery channel. Actually, we have a lot of brands beyond that as well. So we have a lot of host of lifestyle brands like TLC, HGTV, Food Network, and all. Not all of them are available in India, but the whole app Discovery Plus is an attempt to bring all that content into one singular platform where people have access to that. The whole premise behind this is that, and same way with all OTTs, is that you can consume content through various sub brands within a mother brand, and that's the whole point about Discovery Plus. It's the same content that you see on TV. In addition to that, we have a lot of originals that we have been working on for the last year and a half, and we have already seen quite a few of them launched on the platform, and we are going even faster on that track as we go further along. In terms of the audience profile, that's an interesting question, because if you had asked me this question maybe 12 months ago, the answer would have been quite different. But now the answer is, because of some industry development accelerated due to COVID, the answer is quite different. So these days, the OTT audience has started reflecting more and more closer to what we used to see on TV. Earlier, there would be a quite strong distinction between the OTT audience and the TV audience, wherein the OTT audience will be more reflective of the internet population in this country, which is slightly male heavy, slightly more urbanized, and in that sense their taste and preferences would reflect that demographic set. However, in the last 12 to 18 months, because of the factors that you mentioned, Geo really penetrating deep into the market and its competitors also catching up with it as well. And on top of that, the sale of smart TVs like really accelerating. That has meant that a lot of people have now gotten comfortable with the idea of accessing OTTs on their television screens. And the moment it comes onto the television screen, the whole family tends to get involved. So it's in that sense slowly starting to mimic what we used to see on TV, which is more family audience, all members of the household getting involved into watching it, and depending upon whatever they are interested in watching, they can consume that. In fact, we have already reached a stage wherein for Discovery Plus, majority of our consumption actually happens on connected devices, whereas the acquisition continues to happen through mobile devices, but slowly these audiences move on to connected TV.
So I think in a nutshell, the content on digital is kind of different as compared to that on TV. It's more large scale, more budget. Is that what I'm trying to say?
Uh, there are more experiments being done on OTTs. That is definitely the case. However, my point was more from the point of view of customers. The customers initially, you would assume that it's a distinct set of customers between TV and OTTs. Now that distinction is slowly, going away. So the TV audiences are slowly coming on to OTT. It's not a catch-up platform anymore. It's the primary viewing platform for a lot of audience already.
So it's an additional medium of entertainment in today's time, as I'm trying to say. Great,
Yes.
thanks, Pratik. Aditi, I'd just like to bring you here also in the conversation. So, Pocket Aces, specifically in this heavily fragmented market, what's your take on, short form film content? India has been an audience base which is kind of always seen only long form content as far as films is concerned. So, what is the kind of content consumption trends, around short films?
So, hey everyone, nice to be on this panel this morning. Karan, on the short form, I mean, so far, it was always limited to AWOD, right? And that also, quite limited to YouTube as a platform initially. And then, of course, now the definition of short form has completely changed, right? With the onset of TikTok and TikTok-like platforms, right? And again, I think the definition of OTT is also pretty broad, right? So, there's SWOD, of course, then there is AWOD on those similar, same OTTs that also have SWOD. Pretty much all platforms now, except for Netflix, have a strong AWOD play that they at least want to build. And then, of course, that there are the YouTubes and TikTok-like platforms of the world, whether it be Moj or Josh or Takatak, etc. So I think there's multiple ways in which we can talk about short form. The shortest of the short form, of course, is the UGC, and a lot of time is being spent on that, right? Just by definition, user generated content can be infinite in nature and in number. When you're empowering users to actually, it's the biggest form of engagement, right? When they are also creating on your platform. So that is obviously the shortest of the short form. I know you are referring to more the short film model, which, for example, we have channels that do a lot of that on YouTube. You have channels that have you had that ultra short films, that entire thing that was created by the Kingfisher group, etc. And now you see on Hotstar, or you see on other such platforms, there are a lot of short films. So I think that it's a good kind of in retention kind of content, right? So it's for any new platform, it's hard to build that infinite content base for which somebody would open your app on an everyday basis, right? So short form helps in that, where you can quickly furnish the content, right? And then make people not starve for more things on your platform. So whether it is a licensed or syndicated content, or it is original short form content, it's cheap for a platform to buy, and it's easy for audience to consume many of. So when you have a retention like session time, or how many videos they are watching, how many times they're clicking the next button, etc., short form content helps in all of those metrics. Of course, when you look at Pocket Aces and our OTT strategy, it's focused on long form originals. But short form syndication and licensing is also a lot what we do for OTT platforms.
Right. So we've seen this transition in OTT, so to say. I think movies were the ones that were consumed the most, when OTT started. Of course, now then we've seen web series catching up because people are now experimenting, making new web series. Binge watch is the new word. And going ahead, you think this short form content, be it on social media or apps like TikTok, you think this can displace the long form content going ahead? I mean, it could have a negative impact on the consumption of the long form content in any way.
Karan, I wouldn't say that it will displace long form content, because if you, I mean, everything should be looked at from a behavioral lens of the audience, right? So when they wake up in the morning to when they go to bed at night, what are their consumption patterns? And if you look at it in that way, long form versus short form have very, very different behaviors, right? Long form is something which they will decide they have to watch, they will put aside time for it, mostly later hours in the night if you look at a very young audience, and evenings if you look at an older demographic, right, which is like the erstwhile TV demographic. Whereas short form is consumed throughout the day, right? So even when you're, say, in the middle of your meeting, Zoom pe koi bol raha hai, or even if you're sitting in the office, you pick up your phone for like a minute, you'll open one of those apps, scroll 2 3 times, and keep your phone down, right? So the behaviors are so different in terms of how these things are consumed. Also, time of day is very different. So I believe that there is no displacing, both of them will coexist very happily together. And one will only help the other, because at the end of the day, all of us who are in the content business or in the platform business are trying to make people get on those platforms and give them a variety of things to consume throughout the day.
Right. Pratik would like to get your views on, content becoming viral now. This is the next big thing. Back gone are the days wherein you had to, kind of do marketing for content and do various promotion kind of activities. Now it's simply word of mouth, right? I mean, there are music labels now who are trying out content on social media in form for music content, and if that piece of music becomes viral, they're making a big music video out of it, right? So that's how the things are moving right now. So how big is this word of mouth as an opportunity in terms of making the content viral today?
I mean, I don't know if we'd still call it word of mouth, right? Like, because I don't know how many of us are speaking versus how many of us are typing. But for me, it's really about culture hacking. I think that a large part of what everybody from a creator and creative point of view are doing is to try and be at the center of what is popular culture. And popular culture earlier was primarily defined by what was relevant to a certain younger audience demographic, right? But like Aditi said, the demographics of the people who are consuming content is changing on an ongoing basis, and therefore the culture hacks that you have for differentiated audiences are also changing on an ongoing basis. So what a lot of people are doing from a content and content promotion and distribution point of view is looking at different distribution vehicles to push the same piece of content, right? Because there is no more appointment viewing, right? Like, you may have a 3 hour film today or a 2 hour film today, and more often than not, the 2 hour film will be broken down into two sets of 1 hour right before you go to sleep, right? It's no longer, I mean, very rarely would you see somebody binge watch the entire 2 or 3 hours without having to do something else. So what we're seeing today is that a lot of OTT platforms, a lot of content creators, whether it's music video labels or whether it is people like Aditi themselves, they're utilizing a lot of content creators, or in the case of Pocket Aces, creating a lot of content creators who then become distribution channels to make sure that people are able to see the content, right? For any content to go viral, you have to give it, as a marketeer, you have to give it the most amount of legs as you can, right? And for you to be able to work in the center of content, work with the content creators to create that content and to give it the best possible opportunity to go viral, is all that you can do as a marketeer sitting at the helm of content marketing, right? So for me, it's about knowing and identifying these people, identifying the distribution channels, identifying the content vehicles that you can then promote the content to. Uh, that's usually the strategy that a lot of us are deploying today when it comes to OTT platforms, or even for content promotion for brands or branded content in general. And it's working. It's working because we are able to build a community of people who are interested to watch this content on a regular and ongoing basis. And then the pressure is back on us, like Aditi said, uh, to create a variety of content that continues to entertain or enable this kind of conversation for for these people. And that's the strategy that we, and I think a large part of the industry, is currently deploying.
Right, indeed. So there is a very wide variety of content across various platforms, and the audience too is becoming bigger. So
Yeah.
there is more variety for that large audience base which we have in the country today. Very interesting. Let's move to something niche here. Let's bring in Anindo here. Anindo, I wanted to get your perspective on the regional content aspect. Hoichoi has been one of the pioneers, for Bengali content, and as a company, you were also making TV shows in the past since so many years. So how different is
Right.
TV content versus OTT content? If you can, highlight some of the factors in terms of scale, cost, distribution, the talent, creativity. How different are both these types of content?
Obviously there's a lot of difference. Like because I had been part of the television market before, I have been part of the Star India also, Star Jalsha. So I kind of know I have been making TV serials for a very long time, and now I am like into web series. So the main difference which happens is obviously like you can tell quote unquote better stories on OTTs because probably we are the ones who had corrupted the audience of television. Like I has always felt that we could tell better stories on television too, but then for the business was so much in mind, and we started catering to only one kind of audience, and so the kind of television shows we have now, like I mean, it has been created. So now the same opportunity, I mean, so now in OTT you can at least tell stories of more variation, stories which one a storyteller wants to tell. Television has always been business, TRP, what works. At the end of the day, for me, OTT is like a library where you have every kind of shows. Some will work, some will not work. Some will have greater budget, some will have lesser budgets. So I have all these options open to me. But in television, it is not. It's a set pattern, and you exactly know what to do. And there's a formula there. You know when a show is not working, you get them married, or you get somebody killed, and then your TRPs is rising. So in OTT, you don't have that. Like you don't have the innocence. You still don't have a formula. So that's fun. So scale wise, of course, like television is a bigger use of money in the sense because it kind of probably one show runs for like 3 years, 4 years, more than that. So in that scale, like it's pretty huge in terms of the money spent on the industry. The industry works better that way because there is a set of people, 50 odd people, like working for 2 3 years, and it's a huge industry that way. But I think OTT is fast catching up there too, because now that we are kind of at any given point of time, we are actually shooting 5 to 6 shows. So, which is again creating quite a large market. Like initially, it was, I mean, so when we were shooting one show, like this next second show used to come after probably a gap of 2 3 months. Now, like especially in Hoichoi, so what we are delivering is basically 24 shows, like two shows, like new shows every month. So 24 shows a year. So that means at any given point of time, we are shooting around 5 6 shows. So that way, yes, it's a different industry, but more fun in OTT any day.
Right, but is the audience on OTT very demanding? Because we've seen that in Hindi, in English, the audience wants that large scale shows. But what about the regional audience? Are they also demanding, looking forward to the large scale web series, or are they okay with just censorship not being there? So what is the kind of demand for the regional audience?
No. This Tarun, this is Karan, this is really interesting. My last reading, censorship not being there is now slowly like is dwindling. So my reading, my analysis is now that this during the COVID times, people are mainly working from home. So while they're working from home, they are watching OTT content more on television. Television is the device that is. So the more they're watching OTT content on television, so again it is becoming a family viewing space. So you really cannot watch quote unquote a very adult show like with your daughters and sons and your fathers and mothers moving around. So again like now we are very cautious about like what kind of content we are delivering. But at the end of the day, as you said, like the good part of OTT is because I said like it's like a library, so people will come and pick and choose their stuff. If they want to watch an adult content, good and fine. If they want to watch something very family, that also is there. So that way, I think we are in a good space, and some shows will be large, but then if they are demanding, but then the smaller shows also surprises us. So I can't really draw a line and tell that no, it's only the larger, bigger shows which are working in OTT. A completely smaller shows like so we had a show called True Love and like it was a freemium, like it was like done on peanuts. But that probably like last year that made one of the biggest business. So at the end of the day, its stories are stories, like be it big. So there is a demand for a Bahubali and a demand for Piku. So it is there with us like in OTT. That's how I feel.
Right. So as you said, there may be a shift in terms of the TV family audience watching that same OTT content on TV, and plus that same audience can also watch additional time content in terms of whatever they want to do on a catch-up basis. So there's an incremental demand there as well, right? Praveen, just to pick your
Correct.
brains here in terms of the genres here. So typically, it's still very early days to call out in terms of what is happening because a lot of the OTTs today are experimenting, and Discovery Plus is primarily into infotainment. But any kind of sense you have in terms of what are the key genres in OTT that are doing well today, and what are the future? What does the future hold like? I mean, what are the kind of genres that could surprise us in the future, say in 3 to 5 years, which will probably attract a lot of investment in terms of content?
So I think the consumption choices as such are relatively similar on TV and on OTT. The only thing is that because the content is more varied, so therefore there are more options for viewers to choose from. I think one of the best thing that can come out of OTT content consumption in the next few years is that some of the genres that might have been slightly ignored in the past because they might not have been more broad based are something that are going to probably gain more some more traction because on TV it's very difficult for niche genres to survive, especially with the new tariff order coming into the mix and the business of smaller channels getting really challenged. So for us, our traditional genres obviously tend to do great. So we have adventure and all of that really does great on OTT as well. But in addition to that, all the drama based content, whether it's investigative in nature, whether it's paranormal in nature, all of that is also doing better than what it has done on TV in the past. So there's a big opportunity that we see in that space. Also, what people would like to see are more real stories, more stories that they can relate to more, because that's something that they feel very comfortable with. So, to give you an example, we launched a show around 3 months back called Money Mafia, which was centered around all the financial crimes that have taken place in our country in the last 2 to 3 years. And that kind of really struck a chord with a lot of people who have been, victims of phishing or, some or the other different kind of these scams that are going on these days. And we quickly turned around and we brought in the season two of the same show. Most likely this show may not have never seen the light of day on television because it will be like, okay, which sponsor would want to associate with a show that promotes financial crimes? So it's, there the economics might not work out that well. But on OTT, obviously we have a slightly better handle there. There's a captive audience. They are paying for it. They are paying a premium for it compared to what they do on TV. So of course you can, put that kind of content out there. So more experimentation. The broader themes continue to remain the same. Drama, entertainment, all of that, continues to remain the same. but pushing the boundary of that content is something that's definitely taking place right now, and it will continue to happen in the time to come.
Right.
Uh,
And Pratik, yeah, Aditi, please go.
I just wanted to add a quick POV there. Because again, when the whole OTT, big wave in India started, everybody was looking for dark shows, right? Because the thought process was that the person who's going to pay for the subscription is the older male demographic, right? So it was that, okay, older male demographic also, if you just think about it, on TV wasn't served so much fiction content that was meant for them, right? They were served news and sports. So suddenly your older male demographic was getting access to fiction content, which is amazing. So they will pay, so make stuff that works for them. So it was basically gangster cop dramas, army dramas, and the kind of shows that we all know were there, like crime thrillers, etc. And I think that made a lot of sense, right? Even from a subscription perspective, to start that way. As we went ahead, and then of course the pandemic hit, like Praveen said, that people were looking for more relatable content, lighter, slightly more upbeat, especially given the pandemic. And so I think a huge diversification started. So just to add another POV, what I have noticed, because now, I mean, we are working with all OTT platforms out there, is that it depends also on the stage of the platform. So, for example, you have some platforms that are further along their journeys. They've been around for a while. Content quantity is not that much of an issue, and they are looking at retention of audiences who of current subscribers, as well as getting new subscribers. And there are some platforms that are just starting off, right? Or that actually halted in the middle and started off again. So their core focus is on getting new subscribers. So every platform is thinking of this combination of content that needs to be, some are subscriber driving shows, right? And some are retention shows. And retention is as or more important than subscribers, because it's cheaper than having those guys leave your platform and and acquiring them again. The CAC becomes really high for the same audiences. So I think certain genres and certain size of shows are great for subscriber driving, and certain genres and size of shows are great for retaining. Right. And then, of course, if you want to attract like younger audiences, then some of your slice of life, light shows, comedies, etc., are great for subscriber driving as well. So just wanted to kind of add that POV on the genres and the goals that these platforms are looking at across their life stages.
Right, very interesting point there, because when you have an award based platform or someone who just started, there is a lot of constraint in terms of the cash flow or your content budget. But when you have someone who scaled up in a big way in terms of SWOT, there is sanity in terms of this is the amount of money I'm going to spend at least on content. So the higher the SWOT share, I think the larger scale the content cost would be, just to avoid the cash burn. Right. So, Pratik, what about the future of this in terms of content consumption? What about country like India, which is not used to paying for OTT? This was a term used 3, 4 years back, but because of COVID, we've seen what has happened. SWOT market is just, gone up, the last 1 year. It's now somewhere close to about 3,500 crores. We've seen Netflix time and again, kind of revise their prices downwards. ARPUs are now working favorably and affordably. In fact, a lot of cord shaving has also happened, wherein people are trying to say that, okay, fine, we're going to cut our cable bills to some extent and probably divert that budget into OTT. So, what is going to be the future in terms of the SWOD paywall in India? You're on mute, I think. Yeah, I can't hear you. Yeah, no, no. Right. You can just re-log into then. Anindo, I'd like to bring you here in the conversation, just to get your sense in terms of this SWOD revenue and what is the assessment in terms of regional audience? I mean, what is their willingness to pay for content and how have things changed since the last 2 to 3 years? Anindo? Right, Praveen, am I audible?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, Praveen. So, Praveen, what about the content cost? I mean, of course, we are seeing growth in terms of the OTT market, AVOD growing 40%, SVOD growing 50% plus. You believe content cost will also go up by that fraction, say 25-30%, because of the kind of content the customer would demand. And of course, there's fragmentation even now, so we know where consolidation will happen. So, what about the content costs going ahead?
Karan, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. Praveen, if I'll just answer the question first and I'll move on to Pratik. Yeah, Praveen.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
So, in absolute terms, definitely yes. Obviously, OTT will continue to gain more and more investment, but the business models, obviously, there are going to get more and more rationalized. Unlike TV, where cost structures were relatively more stable, more fixed, OTTs are not like that. The variable cost is a huge factor, and you cannot just simply go on, doing investments across all the three major line items, which is tech, marketing, and content. So eventually, you have to reach that holy grail where these costs become lower than the revenue that you are able to generate on the back of this. I think Aditi very well summarized this. I think she has already answered the ROI part of it. The ROI is looked at a portfolio level at our end, and we look at two major metrics there, which is the acquisition potential and the engagement potential for a particular show. And of course, there are sub matrix within these two that we look at, but on an overall basis, there are weightages assigned to both of them. And at an overall portfolio level, then you look at what's the content doing for us in terms of both acquisition and engagement, and that's how we come up with an ROI figure. And obviously, the idea is that over a period of time, that ROI keeps on improving more and more. And also your other line items also start making more sense as you go along. Like I said, the tech and the marketing cost are also much bigger in the OTT side of the business compared to the linear side.
Right. So, Pratik, that question for you was in terms of this AWOD, SWOD, and people wanting to pay for content. How is that going to change in the medium to long term?
So I'll tell you what we're doing at Zoo, right? Like, so I think one of the initiatives that we're taking over the next 3 years is an initiative that we call Naya Bharat, right? So we're saying that there are about 600 million people that are on the internet, and the 600 million people will go to about a billion people over the next 2 to 3 months, right? And I mean 2 to 3 years. And what's going to happen is that they've never consumed content, they've never been exposed to the internet. These are the kind of people who will have a different kind of content consumption journey, right? This requires technology, this requires content, this requires localization, this requires everything that comes in that sort of a sort of an ecosystem. One is that market, right? And that market will not be a SWOD market at all. It will be an advertiser driven market, because advertisers will also want to change consumption habits, will want to give lifestyle sort of an upgrade. The first 600 million people who today everybody is going after, whether it's a brand or an OTT platform, right? What we're going to start to see is that the business models will start to evolve, right? You're already seeing a lot of bundling happening. A lot of apps and a lot of OTT platforms are now becoming a part of the whole bundling conversation and the bundling ecosystem. In such a scenario, even though the business models of such apps are subscription based, the bundling is making the apps available for free. Like for example, the Amazon Prime is bundled with Geo. Right, today, if you take a Geo broadband connection and you pay, like, I think 999 for it, you're bundled with with an Amazon Prime app. So a lot of OTT players are also trying to figure out what the actual business model and the ROI, like Praveen or Aditi said, is actually going to be. To give you context, we just launched a campaign for a change in price for Netflix today in the morning, right? Like, where Netflix has further reduced its reduced its prices to 149 and 199 from 499, which also means that a premium player like Netflix, whose average revenue, I mean yearly average revenue per user was somewhere around 7,500, is today targeting a person at 2,500 to 3,000 rupees, in totality. That's a massive delta and massive shift. Now, this could be because they've seen people use one screen or two screens and therefore have had to reduce price basis competition, or they're seeing the fact that India has a long tail, right? So how can I go to a larger audience and audience base that they can actually go out there and explore? So all three models of SWOD, AWOD, right? A lot of the television channels or television networks will continue to be AWOD focused, because they're creating content on an ongoing basis, and they will usually have highlight entertainment or sporting events that will get the acquisition cost sorted for them, right? Whether it's the IPL, and also IPL, the Indian cricket rights, everything goes into auction next year, which means that a lot more OTT players, for the lack of a better word, will have access to sport and sporting content in India as well. Once that starts to happen, a lot of customer acquisition cost will reduce, which means that people will have a lot more money to spend on differentiated content. And after that, I think Praveen and Aditi have already spoken about what kind of content choices people need to make, and therefore how are these OTT platforms deriving ROI. So to just sum it up, for me, the premium customer is going to be an SWOT customer who is going to want to pay for subscription because he or she does not want advertisements, does not, I mean, wants the best content available to them at their fingertips. Uh, Television networks moving into OTT sort of spaces will continue to focus on AWOD. There will be bundling opportunities which will be sitting somewhere in the middle. And honestly, while all of these three business models exist, each one of the OTT platforms will look at their own ROI metrics and then figure out what's the best course of action for them. So it's still pretty much up in the air, and everybody's trying different things at the moment.
Right. So, and definitely in a country like India, wherein you have such a large audience, you premium is the way ahead, because
Yeah.
you can't actually have only an SWOD or only an AWOD platform. So that's what most of these platforms are targeting. Just one last thing here, Aditi. In terms of having celebrities in web series, right? So nowadays you've got social media influencers who've got 1 million, 3 million kind of followers, and they've just come from nowhere. They are content influencers, over there, who've been born because of social media. So what is the update on that in terms of how much does the viewership of a particular web series gets impacted because of having a known star or a celebrity? Or do you believe the audience today is okay to explore a web series with a new a person or a new actor, and will become a fan of that person eventually? So what is different over there? Having someone like a Amazon Inside Edge, having Vivek Oberoi into it, or Inside Edge without Vivek Oberoi. How much of an impact does it have in terms of web series consumption?
So, Karan, that's a really good question. And, we also have an influencer management arm, like a talent management arm called Cloud within Pocket Aces, because we truly believe that today talent is born every day, right? And the growth of talent is coming completely from people's love, right? So the beauty is that the popularity metric that we're talking about, right? You took the Vivek Oberoi example. His popularity metric is a perception in our heads. But if you take the example of somebody like an Ayush Mehra, who maybe only a few people in this panel might even know his name, but he is one of our talent and has grown hugely. His popularity metric you can see on his Instagram page. You can see the engagement, you can see the number of people. So I think what remains more true today than ever before is content is king, right? So you might have a huge star, but if the series, and I'm going to mostly talk about series because series is where those metrics really come into play, right? How long did people watch for, whether a season 2 got greenlit, and then whether it was successful, also the ROI, right? So say you paid, I mean, some of the ATL, BTL metrics of series with large stars are completely reversed. It's like 70% ATL and 30% BTL. And then in the next season, आपको उनके dates नहीं मिलते. So what does it actually do to your service in the long run is a very interesting question, which still hasn't really been explored, because with any big star today, season twos and season threes haven't really come. Right. And for an OTT platform, franchise building is very important, as it is for a creator. So what I would say is, answering your question kind of more directly, because there are a lot of arms and legs to this question, is that today content is king. You have to get the right person for the part, and you have to get somebody who you'll actually be able to build a franchise with, who will come season on season again and again, and will give you the right ROI. Right. So if you're breaking your bank, fine. If that person is giving you the ROI required in the long term for that franchise. Otherwise, it's better perhaps, and to go with the smaller actors, I would say, because they also put their life in promoting the show, because for them that's their biggest show. Each show they do is their biggest show, so they put their life in promoting the show for free, for which you will not get the big stars doing for
Correct.
you. And the big stars ka jo insta following hai, very often it's also bought. So even if they put promotional post, aapka engagement kitna aa raha hai? So again, I'm a huge proponent of digital talent. Obviously, I'm biased, but I also do think they give a lot back to the platforms, and do whatever they can to promote the shows. They will take out dates for you so that you can maintain your 12-month cadence for your season 2, season 3, season 4, and these are very important issues when you talk about the franchise building and the series business. Um, that said, all things equal. So imagine there are two stars. Okay, they both audition really well. They both fit the part. Everything. One is more popular with some metric, or one has a bigger perception as a star. Then of course you pick the guy who has, or the girl who has the bigger perception. All things equal. But very often all things are not so equal.
No, just to
Right.
add
That's
to
a
what
very
Aditi
interesting
is saying,
point as well. Yeah, Pratik. Yeah.
just to add, like I think every OTT platform that came internationally in India went formula based, right? They said, go to the biggest production houses, go to the biggest directors, go to the biggest actors, and everything will fly. And it's not been the case. The audience is expecting very different things, because this audience is, consuming international content. They're not going after the Diwali Eid and Christmas releases, right? That's not the audience that's really consuming this content. So the formula based, what Anindo was saying in terms of television, right? That formula based even for OTT has not worked. Some of your biggest, because for the directors and the production houses, the biggest directors and production houses, OTT became a experimental stage, right, where they were not delivering what a consumer would usually consume, right? And therefore they were not able to build that franchise, like Aditi said. And so many people have become stars from, like, you look at the show that was, the Big Bull, versus which had Abhishek Bachchan on one end, and it had Pratik on the other end. Content won eventually, right? Like, I mean, just the way that the show was built, that for me is an apples to apples comparison in some format. And content was the winner. The guy on the OTT show was a big Gujarati actor, but really nothing compared to Abhishek Bachchan. But the content won eventually. So content is actually, it's never been a better king than it is today. In my opinion, it has the best audience to rule over.
Absolutely, and the same example applies to many other pieces, right? So if you look at just the biggest shows on Indian OTT in terms of success, right? Even latest, for example, if you look at Tabbar, I mean, it's a Pavan Malhotra led show. That's amazing, right? Like, about how well it did and how inexpensive it was, right? Or even if you look at a Mirzapur, उसमें कौन सा एकदम बड़ा A-lister है? कोई नहीं है, right? And then Patal Lok, there are many such examples. So again, I think it's not even theory. We have seen it in practice. This thing working the way it is.
Right, very interesting indeed. So I think just five key takeaways that one can draw from this panel. One is, of course, in terms of new genres, non-fiction has a very strong future in terms of reality kind of shows which are large scale. content is much bigger. Content is king. So you might have a celebrity who will probably give you those initial views and clicks for a particular episode. But if you want to really see the sustainability of that particular web series as a franchise, I think content has to is a bigger thing here. Premium is the way ahead for a country like India because you can't go only S word, only A word. The market opportunity is huge here. All forms of content will actually sustain short form, long form, music videos, everything put together, and also the variety is going to increase because even the regional content is picking up with time. So, very interesting, insights indeed. Thank you very much, all the panelists. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you everyone for this engaging session. I especially thank our panelist and our moderator to be here with us today. I'll also thank Mr. Anindo who dropped out because of some technical issue. Another thank you goes to all our attendees who are here with us today. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This was fun.
Thank you all. Bye bye. Take
Thanks,
care.
guys.
Bye,
Bye.
Karan.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the fireside chat on indie music changing the face of India's streaming market. We would like to begin by thanking you all for being part of fifth edition of Pixel Digital Entertainment reaching a new peak. We would also like to thank our title partner Woot, Platinum partner Amazon Prime Video, Shakes partner Zendesk, content delivery partner Limelight Networks, Gold partners Lionsgate Play, and Shimaro Entertainment. Without any further ado, let me introduce you to our special guest, Miss Hanita Bhamri, singer. Over to you, Hanita.
Uh, Thank you so much for having me. And just a little about myself and about my journey. Um, I started off as an introverted kid who had a lot of trouble making friends. And I remember when I was 11. Sorry, can you hear me? Um, Sorry about that. I thought that I'm not audible. Okay. So, when I was 11, I used to scribble short poems and songs, and I felt like I belonged, um, found like a place in my world. And um, through that started this journey where um, I found a way to express myself through music, um, and slowly, despite a lot of detours, I kind of realized that I wanted to chase this dream, even though it seemed completely bizarre to my family, to my friends. Um, but that led to some of the most incredible things that have happened. I got to represent India in Project Aloft Star and win that internationally, and sign a deal with Universal Music, and work with T Series, work with Sony Music, release a Spotify single, and even end up on Times Square Billboard, which is, I think, a feat that an independent artist can't even imagine. And to see that happen was completely surreal. And I think the reason that all this was possible, that the reason that something obviously powered this dream, this little dream that I had, into a reality. And I want to talk about that today, which is the gap in what the mainstream media was providing us, which was Bollywood, and what the listeners truly wanted. For a long time, Bollywood had a monopoly in terms of what the listeners could really listen, even though they wanted to listen to something else. There was no option but to consume the music that was playing on radio, that was playing on television, and it was marketed right to our faces. But with all these streaming platforms coming in, suddenly there was a shift, and people could now discover new artists instead of just listening to whatever the mainstream media was telling them to listen to. And with powerful algorithms, um, they could actually find music that was tailored to their preferences, to something that they truly enjoy listening to. And once they got hooked, then you would see that, independent music started rising. And especially in these last 2 years, I think people were seeking a lot of comfort, they were seeking a lot of connection, and that is something they found in Pratik Kohad's Kasoor or Ritviz's Roshni, which was kind of missing in the mainstream, or the pop music. Um, and Slowly we also find that all these OTT platforms, they wouldn't have budgets for hiring a music director, or just having a theme based thing where people are composing music specifically for film or specifically for the series, and they started licensing music. And that is when independent music suddenly got its platform, it suddenly got its due. um, and we started seeing more and more independent music, more and more of meaningful tracks, and more of um, independent music getting that center stage, and I think OTT is like largely responsible. And also, like recent report by Spotify says that the largest consumer of music right now is the Gen Z, and Gen Z is looking for comfort more than anything. When they listen to music, they're looking for comfort, and that comfort, that gap which was there in what mainstream music was giving and what independent music had to offer, was suddenly filled because of these streaming platforms and the algorithms driving that music right to the Gen Z audiences, and they were discovering all this music. And truly, like, people found a lot of comfort, they found a lot of connection, they found a lot of authenticity in independent music, and that is the music and the art is what got people through the difficult 2 years. That that is like the most um, light way to describe it, because it's been truly a tough year for artists, for audiences, for a lot of people, and music is something that got us through. And but what is like really the future of independent music? um, will it really overtake Bollywood? I'm not sure, because music labels and Bollywood as an industry, they have a huge marketing muscle, they have huge networks, um, and they have huge budgets, all of which are missing for independent artists. A lot of us, like me, we don't even have, it's like a one member team. Um, I am my guitarist, I am my producer, I am um, my I come up with my own music video concepts, I am my social media manager. Um, so it's literally like I'm a booking agent. Everything is being done by this one person, and we're putting our own money into it. And that is very hard to compete with um, bigger labels and the massive structures that exist in Bollywood, and there's obviously a lot of gatekeeping. So I'm not sure, if indie will ever be able to overtake Bollywood, or will ever be able to become more mainstream than what is mainstream right now. Um, but definitely, I feel that um, because of the way people are responding to independent music, because of the way that um, people are truly connecting and supporting independent artists, they are sharing their music, they're covering their music. Personally, like for me, I started off with less than 1,000 streams in 2018, and today, like in a matter of a few years, in 3 years, I'm at more than 10 million streams, which is completely bizarre to me. It doesn't make sense. It blows my mind that there are so many people who want to listen to my music despite having such limited budgets, limited marketing. It's all through word of mouth, it's all through these algorithms which are powering it, it's all through demand. And um, I feel like slowly what it is doing is it's creating a shift and kind of indicating to the music industry as a whole that people are not just looking for songs like Chikni Chameli. People are looking for more meaningful songs. People are looking for songs that give them comfort. And maybe independent music will not overtake Bollywood, but it would definitely change the kind of music people are consuming, and ultimately the industry has to respond to what people are asking for. So I think in the future we would see more and more meaningful songs, we would see more and more comforting songs um, in Bollywood and in the mainstream media. And I'm very excited for seeing independent music rise even more exponentially than it has in the last 2 or 3 years. And it's definitely an exciting time and a very, very hopeful time to be an independent artist. Um, especially with all the streaming platforms giving us so much support and the audiences and the festivals and everything. And it's truly amazing to see that exponential rise. And I'm going to conclude this session with a song of mine, which is called Chehra. Um, it's a song I wrote for my nani when she passed away. And in our culture, we say that the soul, when it before it passes over to its spiritual realm, it sticks around for 13 days, and they're kind of here to provide us comfort, and they're here to kind of listen to us. And this was my way of kind of honoring her memory. And here it goes. दिल में दर्द है पर दिल की कौन सुने पलकों पर बैठा भी दे आंखें बंद करे तो आंसू बहे बस चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे रहता है तेरा चेहरा जिंदगी पर क्या जोर है ये सांसें जब चाहे थमे रोकना मुमकिन नहीं जो छिन गया वापस आएगा नहीं जितना साथ मिले उतना ही कम पड़े फिर मिलने की आस रहे बस चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे रहता है तेरा चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे रहता है तेरा चेहरा खो के तो जीना सीखा है सपनों में कैद हो गए तुम रो के ही तो हर दिन बीता है फिर क्यों ये दर्द ना हो कम दिल ही बेदर्द है इस दिल की क्यों सुने पलकों पर बैठा भी दे आंखें बंद करे तो आंसू बहे बस चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे रहता है तेरा चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे चेहरा आँखों के आगे रहता है तेरा चेहरा दिल में दर्द है पर दिल की कौन सुने दिल में दर्द है पर दिल की कौन सुने
Thank you so much, Anita. Thank you for this lovely song and for joining us today. I would also like to thank everyone joining us today for joining us, our audience as well. We are signing off. Thank you so much and stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me, and it was absolutely great to talk about independent music and see so many people support it. And yeah, thank you so much.